Good morning and welcome to episode 7 of How to Do Digital Marketing, where we help people learn and apply proven digital marketing techniques for their work or for the business. Episode 7, we are still with website development, and within website development, as we mentioned in episode 6, we are going to talk about a very critical aspect, which is developing a wireframe for your website. Now, in episode 6, we touched upon briefly on what a wireframe is, which is essentially an architectural structure of how your website should be, the functionality it should have, the hierarchy. It is not a layout, but it will give you a good plan of what a website should be. And in episode 7, we're going to get into in-depth of what a wireframe is and how you can actually use various tools which are available to build your own wireframe. Why do you use to wireframe? It's a very important step in any screen design process. Number one, it helps you to identify the information hierarchy. What should come on the home page? What should come on the inner page? What should come on the third level page? It also helps in case you are developing it for your boss or for your client. It'll tell him how your website is being structured before you get into designing phase or programming phase. Now, this is a very critical step to apply, because what happens is that if you do not have a wireframe, you might end up creating a lot of designs before it gets approved, and also at the same time you might end up in having to do expensive reprogramming because somebody doesn't like the way you structure the website. So a wireframe essentially provides very clean and readable information to help you make decisions much better. There are three aspects which people talk about. One is a wireframe, one's a mockup, and one's a prototype. It's very important to understand what is the key difference between each of these three terminologies that you end up hearing. A wireframe is a very low fidelity presentation of a web page. That's how it looks like. It just shows that there's going to be an image at the top, there's going to be various buttons, there's going to be reviews, there's going to be user goals, there's going to be a form in one of the page. So it's not a layout, but essentially a structure of all the content aspects of the website. They can be interactive, but they do not show much detail. And it's a very simple design guiding principle. Once it starts to become interactive, it is what is called as a prototype, because then you're actually getting to have a sense of what your website is going to look like. Now, this is what a prototype actually looks like. So as you can see, it's very close to what a final product is going to be looking like. And it's like a model that you have. So when you build a house, you have an architect's drawing, which is what a wireframe is. Then you might have a mock-up, which actually shows how a 3D representation of the building. That's like a prototype. And a mock-up is essentially the visual representation of the wireframe. So it's like a static. So your designer works on each page of the wireframe, creates a layout, the UI or the UX person creates a layout. And this is very, very useful because most people tend to look at from the perspective of how the website is look and feel. And they're very easy to create, and therefore it's a good way to represent as a next stage. So first you create a wireframe, then you might ask your designer to create a mock-up of the same. Between a wireframe, a prototype, and a mock-up, as you can see, a wireframe is used for communication and documentation. A prototype is largely for interactivity, and it takes on the key aspects of the UX and the UI. And a mock-up is largely a visual representation which tells us various stakeholders. So maybe it could be a boss, maybe it could be a client. It shows him how the website is going to look. And therefore, each of these three can play a different role depending on what the purpose or who are your stakeholders. In a wireframe, there are essentially 5 things that you actually try to capture in a wireframe. One is obviously in terms of what is the functionality of the website, what is the hierarchy, so what's going to come on the home page, what's going to come on third level page, second level page. That's the structure of the hierarchy that you will define. What's going to come on each page, what is the content, broad content that is going to come on each page, that's also defined in the wireframe. And the behavior of the user as he flows through different pages of the website. So that's the 5 things that you will capture in a wireframe. Now, as you can see that when you capture all these 5 things in a wireframe, it gives a sense to what you're trying to achieve through the website, and actually it helps various other stakeholders. You could have share this wireframe with your graphic designer. You could share to create mockups. You could share this wireframe with a UI UX person to actually create the interactivity and the experience. You could even share this wireframe with a programmer and tell him, hey, why don't you start getting into programming? This is how the website is going to flow. This is what the functionality that I'm looking for each page. This is the hierarchy of the pages. And so therefore the programmer can look at the wireframe and actually start building the website. It's very much like I keep mentioning, it's very much like an architect's drawing. So once an architect's drawing is there, whether it's an electrician, whether it's a plumber, whether it's a contractor, whether it's a glass dealer, everybody operates on one single wireframe or one single architecture to put the house together. So a wireframe is like an architect's drawing to help all people put the website together. In terms of a wireframe, it first starts with a strategy and goes on from an abstract to a more concrete purpose. So first is the strategy, what we want to get out of the website, which we talked about in episode 6. We talked about that one very important thing you need to set as a goal in the beginning is what is your website going to achieve, or what's your objective of the website. So that's the first defining part of where you will looking at what should come on your first primary home page. So then comes the scope. What features will you be put it on a home page? Should you just have a large visual? Should it have a video? Should it have a form? What is it that, or is it just going to be a textual content? What is going to come onto the home page? What are the features? Then you start looking at putting together all the features or all the structure functionality into the site together, and that gives you a skeleton. And then you start looking at the finishing it all together and linking it all together. And in the process, you will find that you have cut down the web development process by a significant amount of time. A wireframe essentially helps that to a great extent. So let's now look at actually what are the various tools that can help you develop this wireframe. There are a lot of tools which are available. Some take a longer time to understand, some take an easier time to understand, but in principle all tools operate principally on the same thing. The 3 good tools that we would recommend are Illustrator and InDesign. There's wireframe.cc and my personal favorite, which is Balsamiq. I have been using Balsamiq now for the last couple of years, and I find it extremely user friendly, extremely great, and in no time I can actually put together a wireframe. So the rest of this presentation, this tutorial, we will largely look at Balsamiq and show you some of the ways by which you can quickly create a wireframe for your website. Please bear in mind that you can use the same tool whether you're creating a wireframe for a website or whether you're creating a wireframe for a mobile app. You could use the same tool to do that. The first step is, of course, you need to download Balsamiq. The good news is that you get a 30-day free trial. So it's great to actually download it, experience it, and then make a decision whether you want to buy it. It's not an expensive tool. It's fairly reasonable for the benefit that you will get in terms of using it. So go to balsamiq.com and download. It's a desktop application that you want to use. Once you open it, the first screen that you get to see is that you need to start a new project. Now there's a blank screen. On the top, you will get to see various icons, which actually helps you to create watchers. So let's say you want to create a button, you can drag and drop a button. You want to create a new page, you can create a new page. You want to create a form, you can create a form with Balsamiq. You want to create the home tab, you can create a home tab with Balsamiq. So there are a lot of stuff that you can do in terms of an easy drag and drop principle. And that's what makes it great to use. So on the top left, you will see a plus sign, which essentially helps you to kickstart your first project. And on the top right, you will see the project properties, which essentially tells you that you could either create a sketch of the website that you're building, or you can try to create a wireframe. It actually helps you to define the skin that you want to use. It's a good thing to choose the skin when you start the project. So you have various options, a sketch and a wireframe. Let's look at a wireframe as a skin that we're going to be using for the rest of this tutorial. Now, if you look at it, you can select anything that you select on the top menu bar. You will get a sub menu which gives you various components of the canvas that you can look at. From left to right, it is typically in terms of what you want to undo, you want to forward, you want to duplicate, you can copy, paste, group, ungroup. Essentially, all the stuff that you would need to actually create is available to you in this very, very handy tool. As you can see on the screen right now, you have various things, which is, I've clicked on a tab called container, which tells you that you could create what is the kind of screen that you want. You want to create a browser, you want to create a field set, you want to create a shape, you want to create a table bar, you want to create a vertical menu. What is it that you want to create? So it's all very easy to understand and very easy to use. So you might just want to say, okay, I want to create a browser window, and because I'm creating a website, so let me just click on that and drag and drop it. Or I might say I want to create a vertical tab on my screen, so I click on the vertical tab container and pull it down to my screen, and as you can see, there is first tab, second tab, third tab, fourth tab, which I can define as to what this tab is. The boxed item, once you drag this vertical tab down, you will get to see on the right hand side additional properties for this particular component. So as you can see there, it can help you to define the height, the width, the position, colors that you want to do, as well as you can even link. So let's say you have defined the first tab as home. You can define, or the second tab as, let's say, our services. You can then click on the link and actually indicate which page you want to take this user to. So as you can see, you're actually defining the user flow or terms of how a person is going to use your website. So you can link each of the tabs to various pages on the wireframe, which actually gives anybody who's using the wireframe at the last stage, or when you're making a presentation to your client or to your boss, you can actually use this to actually show your boss or your client very easily how the website is going to be structured. You can also import pictures, you can import videos, you can do anything, pretty much anything that you want in terms of, so you might have already shot a lot of, let's say you're running a restaurant, you have shot a lot of visuals in terms of food they have cooked. You can import all this to put it into images on the website that you're creating. So it actually can give a very nice visual representation of what you're trying to create. So all you need to do is go on the top right, go to the project, go to import and create assets. So anything that you import is automatically created as an asset in Balsamiq. So it's very easy, like I mentioned in the beginning, to create a screen. So here is another screen that we have created, which is for an iPad screen. So you have iPad screen, you could have a screen like a mobile, which is next to the iPad, or you could have a browser screen. So depending on a website, depending on iPad, depending on a tablet or a mobile, you could create the screen of how the site is going to look like, and actually put all the rest of the components in terms of what the home page is going to look like, what the second level page is going to look like, what the third page is going to look like. So once you've dragged the component, you can then set up stuff like what should be the background color, what should be the home tab going to be, should this thing look at anything, should you have a scroll bar, shouldn't you have a scroll bar at all. So you have a lot of components on the right hand side in terms of what the screen should look like. For instance, we looked at the vertical box. So let's say you drag the vertical, we want to create a vertical menu. Once you click it, you have the first tab, second tab, third tab, fourth tab, which you can actually define and write what is it that you want to write there. So one first tab could be, let's say, home, second tab could be services, third tab could be products, fourth tab could be contact us. So it actually tells somebody that these are the various tabs, and then you can link them to whichever page that you want to take the user. You could also, like I mentioned, this is a screen which shows where you can click it and link it to which section. You can even change the color for the list box, so you could have different tabs having different colors to make it more attractive. You could also add various components to create the dashboard. So for instance, you might have a first tab saying this is a dashboard. So you could import graphs. You could have saying I will make 4 boxes. Each box will have different graphs, and this you can visually represent very easily in Balsamiq. Once you click on the right, you can duplicate this into another page. That's much easier. So you can create multiple pages of each screens that you keep on creating. So you have screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, screen 15, or even screen 50. There's no limit to what number of screens that you can create and hyperlink each screen with the previous. So it's like a full-fledged architectural drawing of the entire website that you're going to be creating using Balsamiq. You can link it to a new web address. You can link it to an external web address. You can do a lot of stuff in this with Balsamiq. The play button will actually then get into presentation mode. It's on the top right, which actually shows the various links, and when you click on it, you can actually run through the entire website as a complete wireframe. So right from the home page to the last page with all the linkings, once you've got into place, you can actually give a pretty good demonstration to your boss or to your client in terms of what they are going to get to see in terms of features, in terms of functionality, in terms of user flow, in terms of look feel of your entire website. And all of this, mind you, is without a single piece of programming, a single piece of graphic design, or even a single piece of UI UX. This is all done instantaneously. You could spend a few hours or a few days in preparing this wireframe, and you would get to see this. You can also, best part is that you can also export this into a PDF. And when you click on the green toggle button, you can have the export it to a single screen or a PNG image, or you can export it into a PDF and mail it across to people across the system. So gentlemen, this is broadly what a wireframe does. I would recommend that you'll go to www.balsamiq.com and download this. There's a free 30-day free trial period. Use it for 30 days, and I'm sure that you would love to have this, buy this, and actually use it for as part of a process in terms of developing your next website or mobile app. If you don't like Balsamiq, there are other tools which are also available. Like I mentioned, feel free to use whichever tool you're most comfortable using. And that brings us to the end of this video tutorial on which is episode 7 on terms of wireframing. You can find more resources, tips, guides, as well as coaching and courses programs in www.howtododigitalmarketing.com. I would urge you to subscribe to this channel. We will keep bringing you videos both from an advanced stage as well as from beginner stage. Please subscribe to the channel and please share it with your friends, and we hope you will come back again and watch the next video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.